Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS discussion video. I apologize for the lack of uploading the past week on my channel. I was just feeling a little burnt out last week, but I am feeling much better about things, and I am excited to resume my YouTube duties. Every now and then, I do feel a bit of burnout, and I just step away from everything, so it's nothing out of the ordinary, but I am feeling much more rejuvenated, much more better after my kind of mini break over the past week, and I'm ready to talk VRAINS and all things Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. So we have some interesting news that I want to quickly go over with you guys regarding two separate tweets from people who work behind the scenes of Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS. And as you can tell by the title of this video, this might be a sign that Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS is ending way earlier than we expected. At the time of recording, it's late August 2019. We all expect VRAINS to go until March 2019, or March 2020, excuse me, March 2019 has already passed, just because of the precedence that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Animes usually go about 3 years. It was that way with 5Ds, it was that way with Zexal, it was that way with Arc 5, and nothing told us otherwise that VRAINS would not be the same, especially because you figure there's probably a contract that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has to sign with TV Tokyo, the network that airs the show, that says, yes, we will fill up these time slots until a certain day, probably the March 2020 time period. But for those that have been watching VRAINS, Season 3 has really quickly breezed by. I thought Season 3 was going to be a little more fleshed out, but the way they have rushed through the show to kind of get to the Revolver Soulburner duel, and most likely the Playmaker and I duel in the very near future, has been kind of a cause for concern, because it does seem like these are going to be the end-all duels of VRAINS, and based on two very interesting tweets, it almost seems like Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS might be wrapping up within the next month and a half to 2 months. And so we are going to get right into it. Huge thank you, as always, to DMC, the amazing translator in our community, for translating these tweets. And the first one came on Thursday, last Thursday, Yamamoto Ryota. And I think it's very interesting to note that all of his tweets have since been deleted. Yamamoto, or all of his tweets except one, which I think just says thank you for everything, and that's the only tweet that he has left on his profile. And this is someone who has worked as a storyboarder and a director for Yu-Gi-Oh! Since the Arc 5 days, maybe even before then, and he usually works on No Gilbo episodes. And No Gilbo, of course, being one of the best lead animators that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has had of the last 5 to 10 years. Yamamoto Ryota tweeted this: Episode 116, which is the episode airing this Wednesday, will be the last episode where I take part in VRAINS' production. To everyone in the staff, thank you for everything. Here's where things get really interesting. Yamamoto Ryota has worked on episode 102 with No Gilbo, 109 with No Gilbo, 116 with No Gilbo. So based on that pattern, does that mean that episode 123 is not going to exist? Does that mean that Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS is going to end within the next 6 to 7 weeks, the next 6 to 7 episodes, and it will wrap up sometime in October? Maybe. When I first saw this tweet, I thought it was originally from No Gilbo, and if that was going to be the case, I was going to say, alright, well, you know what? VRAINS is definitely going to be done. I mean, if No Gilbo is announcing that he's done with the production, then there's no way they're going to keep going without one of their best animators, unless there was some kind of disagreement or falling out between the two. Now, I like to look at everything from all possible angles, and the first thing I thought of in terms of, oh, VRAINS is still going to go for a while, just because one storyboarder and director is announcing that he is done with production doesn't mean that VRAINS production is over in general, and VRAINS will still go until March 2020. But here's the thing, according to Ryota's bio, and I did a little bit of a translation myself, and it kind of does match up. Someone told me, without DMC actually translating, that his bio basically is an Indeed advertisement for him looking for work. And if we read the old Google Translate, which is horrible at translating kanji, it reads, Anime Director, we are active mainly on the storyboard and directing. Please feel free to DM when ordering. It does kind of sound like he is looking for work. And here's the thing, when you are older, when you are an adult, which I imagine Ryota is, I don't know his exact age, but when you're an adult, even if you're at a job that you don't really love, sometimes you just need to stick with it because you have adult bills to pay, you have rent to pay, you have mortgage to pay, you have sometimes kids to support. Usually when you are older, you're not just going to leave a job on your own accord without any backup plan. It would be different if we found out that Ryota was going to work on Fire Force or, an anime that is currently going on, or Attack on Titan or My Hero Academia. Then it's like, all right, well, he got a probably better paying opportunity. It makes sense as to why he's leaving. It doesn't really necessarily mean that VRAINS is wrapping up. He just got a very good opportunity. But according to his bio, he is looking for work. And that tells me that even if Yu-Gi-Oh! 7 is starting in April of 2020, a lot of people cannot afford to wait 6 months doing nothing until that starts. This is someone who has been working on Yu-Gi-Oh! For at least the last 4 years, so he probably would have a role to play in Yu-Gi-Oh! 2020. I'm sure they would want him back to be a director, to be a storyboarder, but he can't wait 6 months, so he's clearly looking for work in his bio, and that tells me that there probably isn't many more episodes of VRAINS left for him to work on, and so that is a point for the side of VRAINS ending early, at least in my opinion. When you're younger and you don't really have crazy bills to pay, you can kind of do that. If you're not really loving your job, you can leave it without having any backup plan and just hope things fall where they may. But when you are older, when you have a family to support or when you have yourself to support, you can't really take that risk. So this seems, based on him looking for a job in his bio, it seems that there was not much more for him to participate in regards to Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS, rather than him leaving on his own accord because he didn't like the work and there was a better opportunity to take. So that's the first tweet, and that certainly is not a good sign for Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS in the sense that it's going to be going for a long time. And of course, I'm not someone who wants VRAINS to go just for it to go. I personally believe that there still is a lot they can do with the show. My big wish for VRAINS right now is for them to bring back the other Ignis and have the other Ignis square off against the Lost Incident kids. You can get Miyu and Jin involved that way. You can build the relationship between Playmaker and all of the Ignis and all the other characters, really, and Kusanagi. And we're already connected to Flame, to Windy, to Lightning, to Aqua, and to Earth. And I think it would be a really, really awesome arc to see 5 basically new characters. I'd love for there to be a new opening and ending in October, and that's the final 20-25 episodes of the show. So that's the main reason why I want VRAINS to go until March 2020. I think if they end the show in the next 6-7 episodes, sure, they maybe can tie up all the loose ends they need to, but I think looking back on it, Season 3 is going to be viewed as a very rushed season, and so that's why I really hope that the show will go until 2020. But after this tweet, I am very concerned that we might only have about 4 to 5 weeks left of Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS. Now, the other tweet is definitely not as drastic. It's someone who works as a color inspector for Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS, and DMC didn't translate verbatim what the tweet said, but he basically said that the tweet just states that they're taking their personal belongings from their office back home, personal belongings being Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards and storyboards. So this is another tweet from another person who works for Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS production that is saying they're basically packing up their office and taking things back home, probably because their office is no longer of use to them. So again, if it was one person stating that they are leaving, that's one thing. But now you have 2 different people on 2 different days, very similar to each other though, saying that, yeah, we're leaving, we're packing up our things, we're getting out of the office. That tells me that this show very well might be wrapping up way sooner than expected. And if that's the case, we may have 4 to 5 months with absolutely no Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, the one thing that kind of goes against this is what's going to happen in the OCG. Ignition Assault has not come out yet. That's the next big booster box in the OCG and eventually the TCG that has to do with Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS. I'm not 100% sure when that is supposed to be released. Let me look. It's supposed to be released October 12th. So even if there's no episode 123, we probably still will get to October 12th. But the other thing that is very fascinating to me is if this show does end in October, what becomes of the final booster box of the Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS era? We are due for one more booster box, which will be in January 2020, and if VRAINS truly does end in October, that means that there's no way for them to promote whatever cards are going to be in the booster box. Another interesting thing, unless of course they use like maybe Windy's archetype or Bowman's Hydro Drives or older cards. But another thing that would be interesting is that might be the first booster box in history, if Vrains does end, where the anime will not feature the card that's going to be on the cover of that box. The thing with booster packs, they come out every January, April, July, October. The thing with them is every card that is on the cover of the booster box always gets shown in the anime. That has always been a thing since the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh! This might be a case where if Vrains ends in October and there's a card we've never seen in the show in January, on the January booster box, then that will break the trend. That will break like a 20-year-long tradition for Yu-Gi-Oh! So that will be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. But guys, I really don't know what to think. If you want my truly honest personal opinion, I genuinely do believe, for the first time since all of these hysteria posts started, that Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains might actually end in October. These two tweets really kind of pushed the scales for me. I had always been probably 80-20 that Vrains is going until 2020. I have no doubt about it in my mind, or a very small doubt. But after now 2 people who work behind the scenes for Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains on Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains production have publicly come out and stated that they're done working on the show, and one of them stated they're packing up their office, it really does look like Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains is done with production and the show might only have a few months left. But you guys let me know what you think, or a few weeks left, I should say. You guys let me know what you think of all of this. Let me know if you still believe that Vrains will go into 2020. I hope that it will go into 2020. I'm so 50-50 on it now that I really don't know what to believe anymore. The September summaries will be very telling. The September V-Jump will be very telling, because the V-Jump for this month stated that Vrains is in its climax. The V-Jump for July stated that Vrains was approaching its climax, and as we know, for literary devices, or in the sense of literary devices, when a show has reached its climax and is done with its climax, usually the conclusion is what follows. So we will just have to wait and see if that will hold true. But guys, thank you so much for watching, and I really am excited to talk to all of you about this down below, and just to talk to you guys again. It's been a while since I have done any sort of video, so I am really looking forward to hearing all of your thoughts on this topic. A special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons: Alexa Baker, Glen McGookin, Jorge Carrillo, James Rose, Samuel Stark, Thomas Adderley, Horace Maye, Goosey Q, Vincent Van Der Veen, Jordan Osceola, Smith620, RedEye, FrostReaper, Jorge Leon, Melinda Phantom, and Blue Maiden 28, and to my Diamond tier patrons: Jesse Wood, Garrett Palmer, Galladiator, and Ben Hartz, and to my Egyptian God tier patrons: Syn Cloud, Chris Swan, Joss Rivers, and Matthew Kennedy ×2. Thank you to everyone who is a patron. Thank you to everyone who is a channel member. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who just watches these videos, because without you guys, I would not be able to do this. I will talk to you all down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.